guest says no theatrics, please, in the 2026 budget as the President's State of the Nation address takes place this coming Monday, July 28th. With us now for more, former Deputy Governor of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, Diwa Guinigundo. He is currently Principal Advisor of Global Source Partners. Good to have you back, Diwa. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning, Kathy, and thank you for this invitation.
All right, so what sort of theatrics are you referring to?
Well, when I talk about theatrics, it means that you don't get what you see. See, the budget process starts with consolidation from the bottom up. Okay, and of course, different agencies of government would submit their respective budget. Let's call them X, Y, Z. When the DBM consolidates all of these submissions into one final budget for submission to Congress, of course, these agencies of government will no longer be able to see their original submission. There could have been changes in terms of the absolute size and even in terms of the distribution, whether in terms of more capital expenditure or current expenditure. And finally, after all the public hearings, you don't see again the consolidated numbers by DBM. And then right after the bicameral conference between the Senate and the House of Representatives, still you don't see your original submission. There's so much theatrics about the whole budget process, and you don't see what you originally submitted to
You don't
the
get to
Department
see what
of
you
Budget.
originally submitted. It's nothing new. But what's new here is that we're up against tariffs that we didn't expect. And you wrote that column on July 18th in the Business World. But since then, as you know, so many developments have taken place. There's the president's meeting with Trump yielding a revised tariff rate of 19%. And a number of senators, progressive groups, have raised concerns. So how are you now expecting the president will frame his fourth of the State Nation address following these developments?
Well, the impact of the tariff, okay, will also be felt on trade. It's true that it's not the Filipino people who will be paying the additional tariff, reciprocal tariff of 19% or whatever is going to be the final number. It's the U.S. consumers. However, precisely because imports, U.S. imports, let's say from the Philippines and other Southeast Asian countries, will be higher by the reciprocal tariff, the U.S. demand for these products are expected to actually decline. And that will have some issues with respect to our exports. And export receipts are basically also part of the lifeblood of the economy. So all told, we are seeing a possible impact on economic growth. And this is something that both the IMF, even the World Bank, ADB, and the ASEAN ASEAN plus 3 macroeconomic research office were already predicting a possible slowdown in the global economy.
Exactly the point that I've spoken with Gary Teves and Chilito Abito earlier this week saying, we got to get our house in order, our fiscal house in order. So we go back again to the budget process that you just mentioned. If you say that the budget process is theater, then how far is the budget process from what is strategic, transparent, accountable, fair, and democratic?
Well, we are quite far, Kathy, precisely because there's nothing strategic about prioritizing minor and unprogrammed infrastructure projects. How can you call, let's say, minor flood control projects strategic when we had established and funded a lot of infra projects, and yet we're still flooded? The whole budget process may not be transparent at all, precisely because in the bicameral conference, only a few members of both houses decide the final shape of the budget. And there is accountability is also problematic. For example, in the case of the 2025 budget, Congress allowed DOF to sweep GOCC funds to cover the unprogrammed appropriations. Well, we know what unprogrammed appropriations are. These are spending programs included in the budget, but put on standby and funded only when there is excess revenue available elsewhere or money is borrowed. And finally, we're far from having a fair and democratic budget process. Again, we recall PhilHealth funds sequestered even when the universal health care has been barely implemented. So it's not only not strategic, but also unfair and undemocratic. We have a long way to go, Kathy.
Okay, so when the allegations are that insertions are the new pork barrel in the bicameral budget deliberations, how do you get good governance going to stamp out the practice?
Well, I think it will start with the president. The president will have to get his people, both in House of Representatives and the Senate, to stick to the party line. And the president will speak about good governance, avoiding corruption, avoiding pork barrel projects, insertions of unnecessary election-related spending. I think we will start right, Catherine.
Well, the public is a big stakeholder. We shouldn't forget that. So how can civil society and the independent watchdogs play a meaningful role in strengthening the integrity of the budget process that you can't find right now?
Yeah, precisely. I think NGOs and even the minority group, in both houses of Congress, I think are doing their job. But in the final analysis, when the final shape of the national budget comes out from the bicameral conference, we don't get what we see at the very beginning of the whole budget process. So we also have to play our part. The civil society has to play its part. We have to make sure that we speak up when we see something is wrong or something is amiss. That's very important in a democratic society.
It is indeed a clarion call for the people of the Philippines. Thank you so much, Diwa Guinigundo, for your insights. Appreciate it.